Hey everybody, it's Christina Holloway here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to share tips on how to get promoted that are especially helpful if you are an introvert. I work with a lot of people who are introverts, and what they want is a way to navigate their work environment without losing too much of what makes them unique. First thing I want to do is dispel some myths about introverts. They are not shy or withdrawn or timid. In reality, they are quite powerful thinkers, and companies benefit greatly from having introverts in leadership positions. In fact, I'm going to include a link in the comments below to an article by Adam Grant called The Hidden Advantages of Quiet Bosses. It's a great article, and I thought you'd find it interesting. Real quick, if you enjoy this content and want to learn more about how to make power moves in your career, make sure to follow my channel. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a video from me. All right, so let's get started. Here are 5 tips on how to position yourself for a promotion if you're an introvert. Of course, anyone can use these tips to get promoted. And if you're an extrovert watching this video because you have introverts on your team, pay attention to what introverts need in order to be successful. Tip number 1, how to talk about your wins. Like I mentioned, I do work with plenty of people who will tell me that they are introverts and that they'd like to know how to position themselves strongly for a promotion. One of the areas that introverts tell me that they struggle with is promoting themselves and their accomplishments. The question, how am I going to tell higher ups about all the great stuff I'm doing? Because it sounds like bragging and it's uncomfortable. One method I used with one of my clients was to start with a we approach and then move to a me approach. This is just a gradual transition that allows you to step into this space without feeling too uncomfortable from the beginning. So for her, she needed to share her wins about how her team was working and excelling. We decided that in order for her to share her wins, she positioned those examples by saying, "Look at the work the team has been doing. Here are examples of how the team was able to accomplish those tasks and finish strong." What does this do? It allowed my client to start talking about her wins without saying statements that were uncomfortable, like, "Here's how I won," or "Here's how I succeeded," or "Here's how I'm doing such a great job." You can let the accomplishments speak for themselves as long as those accomplishments are directly related to your leadership efforts. Once you feel comfortable with framing your wins, you can move into a me approach. I'm actually quite happy with the way the team handled that situation. I've been experimenting with a new framework, and this was a great example of how we were able to make it work. Tip number 2, how to accept praise. Many times, my introvert clients are less inclined to feeling comfortable in the spotlight. This is an environmental preference. Some people prefer environments where praise, like awards, bonuses, and recognition, happens publicly. I like when everyone can see I'm being recognized for my efforts. Many times, introverts don't like that. They're less inclined to accept praise in such a public way. Shining the spotlight on them will make them feel uncomfortable. Accepting praise is a necessary part of the job. As related to tip number 1, if you're less likely to talk about your wins, you're also less likely to accept praise for a job well done in a public forum. And here's the thing, you don't want to give the impression that you're not grateful for the recognition. As an introvert, one way to deal with this is to use your statements that explain how this situation is uncomfortable but also very much appreciated. "Well, Bob, you know how I am. Public recognition isn't my favorite scenario, but I can see how the work we completed on this big project was critical to its success. Thank you for recognizing my contributions and those of the team members involved." 3 things happen in this statement. You've explained to Bob that this really isn't your thing, but you're okay with it regardless. Then you accept the praise graciously. Then, to move the spotlight off you, you acknowledge your contribution for this success, but also the others involved. It's a great way to manage your heightened feelings and then quickly pivot the spotlight away from you in an effective manner that isn't isolating. After that, you definitely want to take that praise and add it to your wins as part of your efforts to get promoted. Tip number 3, how to show up in meetings. This is one of the biggest areas I discuss with introverts, and it's one of the biggest pitfalls when it comes to dealing with a world that seems to be shaped around extroverts and their strengths. How am I supposed to contribute to a meeting that is fast-paced, dominated by extroverts sharing ideas, and also important for me to show my strategic thinking? Here's the thing. Introverts are not broad thinkers who like to toss around ideas and shout suggestions in a fast-paced environment. They are deep thinkers who enjoy working on their own or with one other person to find strategic solutions to problems. They don't shout out suggestions unless they've put serious thought into it. If you want to show up and make an impression at one of these meetings, especially if you've been told it's important to contribute, then there are two things you can do. First, hang back in the meeting and assess how it's evolving. Once you figure out a good place to contribute, make the statement that helps define your thinking. You know, Bob, as an introvert, I'm more of a deep thinker. These are all great ideas. I've been taking notes and considering some of these options. I'd love to pull a summary together and get some of my thoughts down on paper. Then I can share with you or the group what I'm thinking. Obviously, there's a level of familiarity in this one. Bob knows you're an introvert. This is important. You don't have to use a statement like this, and if it's uncomfortable for you, then don't use it. But it helps you in one important area. The best way to help people understand who you are is to label yourself first and then shape the interaction and experiences through that definition that you've created for yourself. Why? People are happy to fill in the blanks themselves, and many times that's not helpful to you. If I perceive you as withdrawn and quiet during meetings and I'm really busy and impatient and need help, I'm going to assume you're not contributing if you're not helpful. If you tell me that your strengths in problem solving include depth of knowledge, thoughtful solutions, and a deep relationships with stakeholders, I'm immediately going to leverage those strengths for success. The more you're able to explain to others what your strengths look like and how you both can leverage them for success, the more likely you'll be able to create an environment that recognizes and appreciates your contributions instead of judging you without context. Tip number 4, how to get visibility. Introverts do not like to reach out to strangers and make small talk. Introverts are less likely to enjoy going to big networking events or big corporate meetings and introducing themselves to total strangers, talk about their wins, brag about their accomplishments, and then suggest a follow-up meeting because they're working on a promotion. If you're an introvert, then everything about that scenario I just described sounds icky. And many times when an introvert asks what it's going to take to get a promotion, the first thing their boss will tell them is that they need to get visibility with stakeholders that they don't know very well and then impress them. Okay, let's unpack this. I created a video here about what it takes to get promoted. In that video, I explained why it's important to create an influence chart. Start there. You should have a document that itemizes who is critically important to helping you get promoted. Once you have the names of the people that you need to connect with, start with 3. Then figure out what you might have in common with them or why you have a reason to build the relationship. Why is this important? Introverts build deep relationships. They're not going to reach out to 20 people to get visibility. Start with 3 people and figure out how you can build a professional relationship that will help you go deep. If you don't like cold outreach, work with your boss or someone you trust to come up with a well-written email that includes the third party as a mutual connection. If possible, see if your boss can connect the two of you using the email you wrote that outlines why it would be good to connect. It's a warm connection instead of a cold one, and it will help you feel more comfortable with that visibility. From there, do what you do best. Go deep and make an impact. Tip number 5, how to share feedback. People in general don't like giving feedback, especially if it has to be blunt. Introverts especially are not going to be interested in providing in-the-moment feedback or setting boundaries during a call that requires them to stop extroverts from dominating meetings or pushing their ideas and agenda through at the wrong time. There are 3 ways to share feedback: direct, neutral, and indirect. Let's look at all 3. To share direct feedback during a meeting, you would stop the person from talking and say something like, "You know, Bob, you've crossed into an area that we aren't discussing on this call. I'd like to circle back to our agenda. Thanks." That's pretty direct. Neutral feedback sounds like this: "Thanks for your contributions, Bob. It sounds like these points would be better suited for a standalone call. Let's schedule something for later this week where we can explore these ideas better." And indirect feedback sounds like this: "Bob, thanks for bringing this up. Let's talk more about this offline." At which point you can give direct feedback to Bob one-on-one instead of during the call. Now, I'm not suggesting that introverts don't know how to give feedback, but if you're struggling with standing up for yourself during meetings or managing expectations, or having your meeting agenda commandeered by other people and decision makers are watching to see how you handle it, then start practicing your statements. Pick the least uncomfortable one and start there. Work your way up to feeling comfortable managing stressful situations and difficult people. Use the methods that work best for your personality and build up from there. On a final note, yes, these tips will work well with extroverts as well as introverts. To the extroverts out there, and I'm one of them, I suggest using some mindfulness and emotional intelligence when working with others who operate at a different pace and share information with you on their terms. Pay attention to what they're bringing to the table and then make sure to make enough room for them to feel comfortable there. Plenty of introverts have told me that their best experiences come from working with people who recognize and acknowledge their unique thinking style. All right, so that's it for my video on how to get promoted as an introvert. If you are an introvert or you work with an introvert, feel free to share your experiences below. I love to hear about it. And if you enjoyed watching this video and you found it helpful, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up by hitting that like button and make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you never miss another video from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.